trying to help people, start small businesses, succeed with business. It's so complicated to be a business owner. You have to wear so many hats, and we try to help alleviate some of that. Our business here in Oklahoma City area, we offer accounting and marketing and branding and consulting, and we're getting ready to start doing insurance. So trying to be a little one-stop shop for small businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important because, small businesses usually don't have access. We don't have departments,
Right.
so we want to be your departments. We want to be your marketing department, right?
Well, that's our goal.
We want to be
Here,
your
here on
accounting
the
department and so on.
Yeah. Here on the live, we just try to answer some of your questions. If you have any
Yeah.
business questions, hit us up, try to help guide you a little bit. We have a ton of information and resources on turtlesmith.com. We must have done a couple hundred podcasts by now where we just talk about random issues. So if you've got a problem, I'm sure we've done a podcast on it by now. Last week, we talked a little bit about succession planning. So there's a whole episode out yesterday on how to plan to exit your business, gift it on to your kids, sell it. There's a lot that goes into it, so check that out. But I thought we'd just jump into some questions this week.
Yeah, sure. Let's get them. What do we got?
Calvin, you got one for us?
First one here is, how do I differentiate my business from competitors?
That's a great question, and really a difficult one, but you have to create some kind of competitive advantage.
So my opinion on that is you have to decide what your story is, and you have to tell that story. Everyone kind of has a unique story, and if you have an authentic one, or one that you can make seem really authentic, people seem to like that. They like to when they like to know the history of a business.
They become a little emotionally connected with
Yeah,
it.
they like that. People like to be fans of things, right? They like to be loyal to businesses that treat them well. So one way you can do that is just be on a path of continuous improvement. Be attuned to what your customers are saying and what they want, stuff like that. You'd be surprised how many businesses get tone deaf.
Yeah, very, very.
Especially when they get a tiny little bit of success,
Yeah, or they get big.
They get
companies
big,
lose touch very rapidly.
Yeah, and they start, all businesses they do need some standard operating procedures and some rules and ways to do things, but you have to always be aware that you can't lose touch with the people who are walking in the doors and paying the bills.
Yeah, and at your point of emotional connection and really trying to build a fan base of people who will, go out into the world and, what is it, evangelize your business.
Evangelize. Yeah,
tell
become
everybody
product
about
evangelist.
it. Right. From my perspective, more of like an accounting and numbers perspective, is your competitive advantage really needs to come in your product. It needs to be better or cheaper or different in some way that people really connect to. Your cases, for example, are probably some of the best on the market. That's how you've differentiated yourself. And you offer this custom deal that a lot of people don't, right? Do you have a lot of direct competitors in the custom Q case space?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
So there are probably 6 or 7 custom case makers that I would consider to be competitors, but none of them offer the breadth of models that we offer and offer the depth of customization that we offer. But they definitely exist, right? And they are on a spectrum of quality.
Yeah.
But one of the things, for example, that differentiates me from my competitors insofar as they're competitors is that I'm not afraid to evaluate my competitors.
Right.
Like I'm not afraid to actually buy their case, take it apart and compare it to ours.
Yeah.
And I will call out what I think that they do better. I will call out what I think that they do worse.
Right.
And I will shamelessly steal anything that they do better.
Right.
Now, because of that, and that goes along with the continuous improvement, right?
Yeah.
The things that they do better than us become less and less every year, right? But by the same token, I also give back to the community. So if I do something that's better, that I think is better, I will often do a video tutorial of how to do it.
Right.
And I will just invite anyone to do it. Now, my wife doesn't think that that's a great idea. She's like, don't give everybody your secrets. And I was like, well, I learned by other people being generous with what they do. So I'm going to do the same thing because all of it just makes everybody better,
Yeah, it's a fair move.
you know,
It
but
does. It elevates the whole
it
industry.
elevates the whole thing. But if everybody's quiet and everybody's like, oh, don't talk shit about your competitors, you know, then what happens is that nobody gets better,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well, so that's a great example of your competitive advantage.
I think it is.
Yeah. From my perspective, my competitive advantage for my company is really communication. You know,
100%.
accountants are notorious for not calling you back, not emailing, not texting, not being communicative. And I struggle with it greatly. It is a ridiculous amount of effort to talk to everybody that wants to talk to me in the same day. But that's my goal. And that's how I differentiate myself. I make sure clients have my phone number. They can call or text me directly. They can email me. I answer the phone a lot of times after hours. And that's why I have a competitive advantage over people. A lot of accountants just want easy work. They don't want to hear from their clients. Go down.
Well,
the road.
you know, I've never felt comfortable with an accountant until I got to you because I always have felt that there's a professional wall there.
Yeah.
I only am allowed to talk to the accountant whenever there's a scheduled
meter
meeting,
running.
you know,
Yeah.
and a meter running,
Right.
so to speak. And the ability to just send you a message or call you up and say, hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and that's where we try to kind of differentiate ourselves, and that's my competitive advantage. Another good example is my brother. He opened a winery, a tasting room in Walla Walla, Washington. There's like 75 or 100 tasting rooms in this tiny town. It's a little tourist.
Wow.
So he has a ton of direct competition, and then he has even more indirect competition because wine is a little bit of a luxury, a fun thing. People don't have to go to a winery. They can go spend their money elsewhere, you know, on any number of entertainment. And so he really has to differentiate himself not only from his direct competitors, the other tasting rooms, but also from all the other things that people can spend money on. And so when we were talking about how he could do that, his deal is a little bit like you were talking about, a little bit more of an emotional connection. He talks very passionately and very, very intelligently about the winemaking process. He tries to educate all of his customers. He talks about how much he loves the winemaking process and the art behind it and that kind of stuff, and really helps customers feel connected with him and his story and really just the industry as a whole. And he'll even recommend, other wineries and stuff like that, because just like you said, if he elevates the industry around him, it can only benefit him.
a Q maker that became very famous for his innovative designs and things like that. He had one of the best slogans that I've ever seen that goes along those regards. And the slogan was passion. Passion is a hard thing to conceal.
Yeah.
That's I've always thought about how great that was, because it really encapsulated, for me, what he was going for as far as making pool cues, which are a utilitarian item, into a work of art.
Yeah. Well, but back to the kind of core of the question, we talked a lot. We kind of went on a long spiel about different ways, but you have to come up with some kind of competitive advantage, some reason that people are going to come to your shop or use your service over all of their other options. And it can be any number of things. Emotional connection is great, lower price, better quality, better overall utility, but you got to have something that just differentiates yourself. Otherwise, you're just fighting in a sea of similar items. And unless you're spending a ton of money in marketing, you're never going to get real traction.
It's really hard these days to get above the noise.
Yeah, it's hard.
There's so much distraction going out there. But one of the things that you definitely always want to do, you want to focus on quality, and whatever it is.
Quality and the customer experience.
Right. Well, the customer experience should be a quality experience. Right. Because once you get them in the door, the worst thing that can happen is they have a bad experience, and then the adage goes that a happy customer tells 10 people and an unhappy customer tells everyone.
Yep, that's exactly it.
So you can tell the best story you want, but you need to back it up with good product and good service.
100%.
And that will be your differentiator.
100%. Yep. What's next, Calvin?
How can I find and keep good employees?
We did a whole podcast about that. We've done several, honestly, about how to keep employees. Keeping quality employees is very difficult. Finding them is even harder. The best employees that you're going to ever find when having a business are likely eventually going to be your competitors. They're going to grow with you, they're going to learn, and then they're probably going to branch off and do their own thing at some point. It's hard to keep people motivated that are really good employees, in my opinion.
So I tend to disagree with that a little bit.
Fair enough.
Because I think that there are people out there who don't want to have their own business. That's true. They want to have a job where they can come in and do their job. Mm-hmm. They will, when they come in, they will do the best job they can possibly do for you. Mm-hmm. And again, very rare to find that person.
Yeah.
So okay. Let me say it like this, and I'll couch this in my experience with you. Okay. So my whole life, when I've had to try to find employees, I've always kind of gone through my friends list. Like, oh, do you think you might want to work for me? What would you think about doing this? Terrible idea.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's a great way to lose friends.
Yeah.
Right.
And have a bunch of terrible employees.
So the very first thing you should do is not mind your friends list. Just because someone's your buddy doesn't mean that they're going to be good at working for you.
Right.
Right. Your buddy might go out of his way and do everything possible for you, do things that you couldn't possibly pay for you. But the moment you start paying him, the relationship changes.
Yep, 100%. And you don't want to break cardinal rule number 1, which is never hire anybody that you can't fire.
Correct.
So you don't want to hire a friend that you just can never fire.
Right. Correct. So what I've learned from you is it is worth it to take the time, really, truly take the time to take in a bunch of applications, look them over really well. If you have somebody like I have Scott, for example, who's really good at taking in a lot of resumes, weeding through them. And I don't even get to see the ones that are sketchy or not good or whatever. I mean, he might whittle down 100 resumes down to 5.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
And then we'll talk to those 5 people, and we might choose one, or we might choose none, and then we might put up another ad. Mm-hmm. And it might hurt a little bit to go a few extra weeks without filling that position.
Yep.
But the idea is that sometimes you got to go through a bunch of people to find that right fit. Mm-hmm. And then when you do find them, you don't offer them the world right away. You put them on a trial period.
Yep.
You run them through their paces, because everybody's going to put their best foot forward the first, weeks, months that they're with you. And then you're going to kind of start to see where they settle.
Yeah.
So this is a whole process, right? And it's never ever, I shouldn't say never ever, but it's extremely rare that you're going to get that gem of a person who is willing to do the best job they can for you from day one. Mm-hmm. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
It's a job for them.
Yeah.
And people who work jobs, they know that most of the time they can go find another job if they need to.
So from a practical standpoint, a little bit of what you hinted at is we usually put up job ads on like Indeed or something like that, and we'll get hundreds of resumes. I think for the last job posting, we got like 250 for one job. 80% of them are pretty terrible resumes. I like to really go through, and I actually do the posting, and we put all the qualifications that are needed. We try to list, requirements and wants and maybe things that we would like, and when I go through all the applications, I'll look at resumes, and a lot of those resumes will be tailored a little bit to our ad specifically. They'll make sure to highlight some of those things that were in our ad. Those immediately go into the let's look at pile. We look for those great resumes that come through. And then I go through and I read all the resumes, and we look for typos, and we look for, nonsense or things that just don't really match up. We throw those away. And we eventually whittle down a couple hundred into 5, like you were talking about. And then we do the interview, and we try to do 1 or 2 interviews. Usually how we set it up is I'll do an interview with somebody, maybe even with Tiffany, who works here. She's the attorney that works here. We'll talk to him a little bit, and then I'll try to bring him in for a second interview with you and get your kind of feedback on him. And having those 2 interviews are usually pretty good. A lot of times when they come to me, they're a little nervous. When they come a second time, they might be a little more relaxed. We get a little bit more of the personality. And then if we do hire somebody, we do a 90-day probation. Absolutely. So 30 days, anybody can put their best foot forward, but 90 days takes a little bit of effort. And we'll cut them off of the probation if they're doing a great job or we really like them. In fact, not a lot of our employees have made it the full 90 days. We usually cut it a little short. But we do a 90-day probation, and that way we can really test the waters and see how good they are. And usually at that 90 days, we do a review, some things that we maybe want them to work on, and it usually includes a small raise.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, that's the best way to go about it. If you think about it like this, think about how bigger businesses do it, right? Like,
3 or 4 interviews.
Right.
It's a disaster.
Sometimes Google, right, might take 3-4 months or a year even to hire someone. They go through these many rounds of interviews and all this stuff and things like that. But the whole point of that is they expect someone to work for them for years and years, and they're going to invest a lot of money in this person. So they want to have the best shot at finding the person who's the best fit.
Yeah.
And for small businesses, I believe that is also something that has to be done.
Yeah.
And it's a hard pill to swallow, like the first time Scott said, well, you want me to put this ad up? And I said, how much is it? And he's like, it's going to be like $200, or 150 or something. And I was like, $200 to put an ad up? I was like, I know, because I'm a cheap ass in that regard. It's really funny because there's some things that I'll be like, oh, $1,000? Yeah, that sounds great. Spend it. Right. And then things like this, right? Because I was just backwards. I was asked backwards on this because I was always like of the opinion that I want to hire the first warm body that walks in that hugs me.
Yep.
And you can't do it that way.
Yeah.
You have to have a process where you're assessing someone and you give them a chance to assess you.
Yeah.
And so in my opinion, that's the best way to find good employees.
Yeah. Yeah. And just finding somebody that puts a little bit of effort in at the beginning, that they'll put in effort at the job. And
understand something, right? It's one more thing I think that's important. It's important to understand that when someone comes to you looking for a job and they are a good employee or they seem to be a good person, why are they leaving the job that they were in? What did that employer do, for example? Did the employee do something or did the employer do something that caused them to leave a position? And a lot of times it's because employers did not realize the value of the person and they made that person feel like they're not valuable anymore. And that person's like, okay, I got to go find a position that fits me better.
Well, so that kind of hints now on how to find people. The second part of that question was, how do we keep good talent? There's a few different ways that is kind of shown to keep good talent. But, benefits are a big one. Health insurance plans, 401ks, good kind of benefits for your employees. Good raise structures. It's been proven many times that if you jump jobs every 2 or 3 years as a kind of mid-level employee, you will end up keep getting raises and bigger raises. Every time you go to a new company, you can usually expect a larger pay bump than your current company will give you. So that's something to think about if you want to retain employees. Money is a motivation, but you also got to find the other things that motivate people, and everybody's different. And that's a little bit about getting to know your employees. Your employees will have different motivations. A lot of it will be financial, but some of it might just be, they want an acknowledgement that they're doing a good job. A little bonus goes a long way, a good that a boy type of situation where you're just kind of telling them, hey, I recognize that you're doing good work. Please continue doing it. Thank you for going extra or above and beyond. So you got to find what motivates your employees. And we have about 10 employees here. And then we've got, you've got a bunch of other ones. There are different management styles for different type of people. You have to really get to know them to know what motivates them and what makes them happy in the workplace. Not everybody's going to love their job, but if they aren't miserable coming in, you will have a better chance of keeping them.
Yeah, I agree with that, you know. And I think that's a more tough one, you know, your company culture and how you go about it, you know, because you got to balance that line between being a pushover, you know, and coddling people,
Yeah.
and you know, being a little bit more firm about your expectations. But you know, just for one thing, the easiest way to say this is, you know, don't be an asshole, don't be abusive.
Yeah.
You know, that should
goes a
go
long
without
ways.
saying, but
That
it
goes a long ways.
you know, and you know, I can tell you that there have been times when I've been so frustrated that I've come off as abusive, you know, and not
You do tend to fly off the handle.
not in a
once in
super
while.
asshole way, but more in a you know, this frustration is boiling over, and why can't you all just get on board, right?
Yeah.
But then I have to realize that none of them are as invested in this as I am,
Yeah.
you know.
Well-
So you find that balance.
Yeah, definitely. And check out, we do a whole thing on employee benefits and employee retention. We have a whole episode about it where we get way more into detail about, you know, what the different benefits are and how they can be successful in retaining employees. You know, the two big ones obviously are health insurance. And then really a surprising one is flexibility in schedule and flexibility just in life. You know, we try to give a healthy amount of PTO and a little bit of flexibility in people's schedules. You know, one of our employees just told me today that they need to leave for about 30 minutes a day to help pick their kid up and stuff, you know? And so that becomes a very easy yes for me, because I'm like, yeah, man, take that flexibility, no problem. It doesn't really interrupt our day, and that makes their life a little easier. And so those kind of things really can benefit keeping good employees.
Yeah,
Flexibility.
I think there's some lists out there, you know, about you know,
We have one
what
with
employees
ours.
value, and I don't think that money is at the top of that list.
I disagree. I think money is at the top of the list, but I think there's a lot of close seconds that can kind of, as a group, trump money. You
Yeah.
know, like they can somewhat. But if somebody gets a job offer for triple the money you're paying them,
Well,
you can
triple,
bet
yeah,
that they're
yeah.
running away. So
Yeah, of
money
course.
is the number one motivator in my opinion.
Of course, yeah, in that. But I mean, if it's like the difference between, you know, $14 an hour and $15 an hour, but you get flex time,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, that can be a big differentiator. So we got another question, Calvin.
At what point can my business run without me, and how do I know when I can trust it?
That's a great question. We actually just talked about this in the last episode on our succession planning. It's called the 2-week test. Just take 2 weeks off from your business and see what breaks. Know that some things are going to break, so make sure you have like a little bit of cushion, a little bit of emergency funds set aside. But the 2-week break is the real test. If you can leave your business for 2 weeks with minimal communication, go on vacation, go play golf, go sit at the beach, relax a little. And when you get back, nothing is in a disaster. Your sales haven't slumped. Your store's still clean. Things are still getting done. Then you know that you are safe to take a break from your business.
Somewhat safe.
Somewhat safe. But if you can't do that, if you can't take that break, then really you just have a job. You just have a job with employees that you have to manage. You don't actually own a business. It owns you.
Yeah, I mean, that's, well, you know, there's another saying that goes, you know, when you're thinking about creating a business, you know, don't buy yourself a job.
Right. Right. And that's what ends up happening way too often. And it should happen at the beginning. There's always a period of a ramp up where you're going to have to be involved. You're going to have to do the day-to-day tasks. You're going to have to really be always present and always there. But your goal should be to get to a point of stability where you can take time off.
See, my wife is going through that right now. So she just built a nice dance studio. You know,
Yeah.
it's in our little complex that we have there, that we in our building.
But she needs to be there every day.
Currently, she needs to be there pretty much every day. Now she's got a few interns, I think, that have just started, so
Yeah.
she's got some nights off. But she works all day in our regular business, and then at night she's got to be there to check people in, you know, and be the concierge and make sure everybody's situated, you know, for these classes that are in the dance studio. And I told her the same thing. I said, well, honey, you built a beautiful dance studio, you know, but you basically bought yourself a job.
I mean, we talked about that when she was thinking. I was running the numbers, and I'm like, you can work really hard in the beginning for not very much return, but
Right.
it's a passion for her. She wanted to do it. So.
Right. It is a passion project, you know, and she will figure it out. You know, like I said, we've got a few interns and things like that. but she's also feeling a little bit stressed, you know,
Yep.
from it because it's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
And so how do you know when you're able to, what did you say? What was the question? Leave your business?
How do you know when it can run by itself? And
When it can run by itself.
How do you
Okay.
know when you can trust it?
Okay, well, just like Scott said, when you can leave it alone for a few days and come back like you know, you were never gone,
Mhm.
that's when you know that you can leave it alone and when you can trust it. When you've
Right.
got things working like clockwork,
Yeah.
right? Now, how do you prepare? How do you get it to that point, right?
Well, that's a much longer conversation.
So
but
it is a
yeah.
much longer conversation, but how you get it to that point, in my opinion, is as much as humanly possible, you make the systems and the methods that are employed in that business idiot proof.
That's a great first step.
Now, I recommend, and I talk about this a lot, I recommend reading the books by the 2-Second Lean books.
Mhm.
God, now I'm blanking on the author's name. It was like right at the tip of my tongue.
It's a great one for like efficiency,
but
though. It helps tighten up
efficiency-
procedures.
There's literally like seven major wastes in business, right? And again, this is a much longer conversation. But the point of it is that if people are calling you all the time to say, how do I do this, right? Something breaks and they don't know how to fix it, or they're not empowered to fix it on their own, your business is not ready to be without you.
Right.
So that's basically what it is. So you identify all those areas in your business and you set it up where either you they can fix it themselves, or there's somebody there that can fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more steps to that because there's also, you have to think about like what the bottlenecks are. Usually the owner is the bottlenecks on a lot of stuff, decisions, vendor relationships, customer relationships. And you have to get clearance through the owner before you can do that. And so it's harder to step away. But the 2-week test is the good baseline. Don't just jump to 2 weeks. Your business will probably fall apart if it's not ready. But, take a weekend off. If that's going okay and it's still running, try taking a long weekend, 3 or 4 days, see how that goes. See what breaks, come back, adjust your processes, work on the 2-second lean, fix those bottlenecks so that then you could leave for 5 days and everything's good, and then 6 days and everything's good. But the final part of that question is when can you trust it? And you can trust that your business can run itself when you can take 2 weeks off with no communication, come back and everything's fine. That's when you can really, that's the most trust you're ever going to have. You're not going to be able to leave for 6 months and everything will be fine. Probably ever. That's just retiring. So, but if you can leave for 2 weeks, you can trust that the business is running itself.
There you go.
Any other questions, Calvin?
Yeah, one last one here. What marketing channels are worth the investment? Email, short form video, or local search engine optimization?
I mean, they all work. It just depends on your industry, really, and what you're trying to sell is the most important thing. Let's see. They were search engine optimization is going to be best for every business. Every business has to have some kind of social or search engine optimization. You want to be at the top of Google when people are looking for your type of business in the city that you're in, but you want to try to rank as high as you can regardless. Like if people just type in accounting, I usually pop up pretty close to the top. What were the other ones? Social media.
Short form videos.
Short-term videos are great for products and sometimes for services, but they work much better for products, especially if you can give a little information on how they work, how they operate, what they can be used for, that kind of thing. Services is a little more nebulous, but you can still do some fun stuff. There's that whole TikTok account. Have you seen the Amalfi Jets or what? I don't know why I'm on the Amalfi Jets. I can't afford a private jet, but I still watch these little shorts about them talking about private jets for $300,000 to Europe or something. But those are kind of fun that you can do, little TikTok deals.
So I think you have a balance of all of that stuff. Another adage that comes up in business a lot is, half of my marketing budget is wasted, but I don't know which half.
Yeah.
But the important word in that sentence is budget. Okay. It's important to sit down and have a marketing plan.
Yep.
And have a way to test what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of small business owners, what they will do is they will jump on something thinking, okay, this is it, right?
Right.
They will say, I'm going to do some Google ads, or I'm going to do, this guy walks in and says he's going to, or sent me an email and said he's going to fix up my SEO for $1,000,
Yeah.
you know, and stuff like that. But
You don't need to do that ever, by the way.
but the thing is that you don't know, if there's no way to measure the results, then there's no way to know whether it's ever really working.
Yeah.
Right. So I would recommend, honestly, I would recommend a book called Guerrilla Marketing.
Yep. Great book.
Right now, I'm pretty sure it's been updated for the internet age. Now, I first read that book back in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yep. Yeah, I wonder if there's a new version. I read it in the
I'm
early
positive
2000s.
there has to be.
Yeah,
I'm sure there is, right? But guerrilla marketing was insightful because when I first read the book, it highlighted things like late night television,
Yep.
right? Like, it's actually really cheap. Now, you know, these days that's not so relevant, but you remember how we used to fall asleep? All the infomercials would come on like at 1 a.m. and stuff like that. And
I remember waking up to those.
waking up to
Yeah.
infomercials and stuff
falling
like
asleep
that,
to the
right?
show I was watching, and then waking up to something about Life Alert or whatever.
Right, but you know what? That stuff was surprisingly effective, right?
Yeah.
And you could get actual real commercials, you know, and they could be super cheesy. But people would fall asleep to those things, and they worked.
Yeah, little subliminal messages.
Yeah,
while you're
like
sleeping.
it literally worked, you know. And but most small business owners didn't know that you could actually buy those things for really low prices. You know, or we just talked about one the other day that we didn't know about that I want to pursue, which is the movie theater.
Yeah, you can do
You
little
know,
videos before the
The
movie.
cost you told me for the movie theater one was ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
that's a
like-
new one.
Yeah, it's like $260 a month, and you get 184 playings a week. It's wild.
$264 for so when it comes to internet stuff, you know, they have what they call, so a lot of times when I go to advertise on internet websites and stuff like that, when it used to be the banner ads and stuff, they would price it out to me in the form of impressions, is what they would call it, right? So the guys would say, well, you know, when this goes up on the website, you know, you're going to get between 3,000 and 5,000 impressions. In other words,
Right.
people will see this. The people that come to this website will be shown to them 3,000 to 5,000 times, right? And so, you know, that was kind of a metric, right? So I could say, okay, I can pay for that. Now let me see how can I do some sort of call to action or some sort of measurement to know that people are coming in from that ad, right? So that's why you see a lot of times you'll see, you know, there will be a phone number to call when you see an ad.
Yeah.
And then if you see that same ad like a week later or something, it'll be a different phone number. You know, most people don't notice those things.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
But the reason that there's a different phone number is that's how they can tell the effectiveness of the ad.
That's very clever.
So if you have a way to do that, right, like a coupon or something like that you can offer, you know, come in and mention this term or something like that, right?
Yeah. Then
You
measure
can
the
start to get a
success.
little bit of measurement of the success, and you can kind of do these A/B comparisons.
That's clever.
So that's what I got from guerrilla marketing.
That's very good, because you're right. Without some type of measurement, you're never going to know what the success is.
Right. So that's what I would say is, you know, all those ways are effective. There's no way for any of us to tell you that any one way is more effective than the other for your business. That requires a lot more in-depth analysis of your business, your competitors, your market, and so on.
Yeah, we create a marketing plan for those type of clients where we really go through a lot of the different options. It also depends a lot on your budget too. Like Google ads can be very effective, but you need to put in $1,000 or $1,500 a month usually to make that really go for you. And it might not work if you're not in the right industry.
Right. And another thing to remember is that there are some other things about this too. Like I don't remember exactly what the statistics are, but it's something along these lines. Like it takes 10 impressions or 10 looks at a logo or a slogan or something like that before somebody will recognize your ad, right? And then
Right.
it takes like another 30 before they can sing your jingle
Right.
and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And it takes like another 100 before they can remember your product.
Yeah.
And so this is often not something that you can put it up and expect like people to start beating a path to your door the first week that you do it.
Right.
And so it requires a little bit of patience sometimes.
Yep, it does.
So that's the
does.
best answer I can give you on that.
No, it's a great answer. And the measurement is the real key. If you got to have some way that you can measure the success.
Yeah.
So,
And you got to take the time to do it. You know, small businesses, we wear a lot of hats and you just have to devote some time to it.
yeah.
You know, or you have to hire somebody that's competent and willing to do it for you.
Yeah.
You know, so here at Turtlesmith, you know, not to brag too much, but we do that for our clients. You know, my
We do.
wife, she has some of our Turtlesmith folks here. They do Instagram stuff every week. They you know, so it's this constant churn of small videos. Yeah, so we do the short form videos, stuff like that. And it's effective. You know.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
sometimes some of them won't get much engagement, and sometimes they'll go a little bit viral.
Yeah. Well, any other questions, Calvin?
No, but I think, Scott, you might be undershooting yourself. I think you could afford a private jet. I just don't think you could afford to use it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We looked that up the other night. You know what the like 25% of or 25% or more of the cost of owning a private jet is just fuel.
Right.
Which fuel is about $6.50 a gallon right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you imagine taking a one-way flight from New York to LA, you're spending almost $2,500 in fuel.
Yeah.
Just in fuel. That's before the crew and anything else.
They're like $3,000 an hour to operate.
So I was watching, you know, Landman,
Right.
the series, right? And so they're talking about like West Texas, you know, oil companies, billionaires, all that stuff and everything. And they were flying down to kind of have a little event to watch an oil derrick, you know, kind of floating down the river.
I saw the episode.
You
I
saw
know what
the
you're talking
episode,
about.
right?
Yeah.
So you remember when
Tommy got fired in that episode.
Tommy got fired, but when the planes landed,
Yeah.
right? So they were in their plane and they get out and Tommy turns around and I forget who he says it to, but he says, you know, something about like nice plane to the other guy.
Right.
And then he turns around to explain it and he says, that's a $60 million airplane. It costs $10,000 an hour to operate.
Right. Yeah. I guess I could afford to just own a small jet and just look at it, but that would be about it. Like there it is in the corner.
We can probably buy you a small turbine.
There you go.
You can have a jet-powered skateboard.
I love it. That I could afford to operate, but I don't think I could afford the hospital bills.
You know, some of these guys, man, out there on like, you see some of these YouTube videos where they're putting literal jet engines on like a go-kart and
Yes.
shit. I mean, these are some crazy people.
I have seen it. I've seen the guy who does the rockets on things too. He just turns everything into rocket powered.
Oh, it's nuts.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's it for this week. Catch us every Thursday at 4:30 Central. We'll answer any business questions that you might have. Turtlesmith.com, at TurtlesmithOK at all of our socials. And please, if you have any questions, ask. We're here to answer them.
Yes, we are.
All right. We'll
All
see
right.
y'all next
You
week.
guys take care. Bye-bye.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dream.